Hello and welcome to the Early Bird Special with your hosts, Carole Montgomery and Julia Scotti. And now, here's Carole Montgomery.
Hey, everybody. You got to see the back of my husband because we don't have, we're very DIY here at the Montgomery homestead. Welcome. It's 4:00. It's the Early Bird Special. We're still doing it. I think we've been doing it now I've checked. I actually checked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. This is our 17th show. Woo! 17 shows. So, hey, everybody. I hope everyone is great in quarantine land. I have to tell you, I'm kind of feeling like this is never going away. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but wow, this is it. This is our life. There's baseball is happening. There is nobody in the stands. Sports are happening. Nobody's in the stands. Colleges went back to school, and now they decided they have to close all the colleges again. So it's kind of this is our life, I guess. Now we just we hang out at home and we say hi to each other and we watch the Early Bird Special. So there's a lot of things happening, but I think I want to bring Julia on right away because there's this thing happening. I want her take on it since she's a Jersey girl. But right now, across social media, there are people talking about how they're leaving New York City because it's such a terrible place now. And it's like, people, seriously, if you haven't lived through New York in the 70s, you cannot fucking complain about what's going on now. So, seriously, yes, it's bad, but it is nowhere near as bad as it was when I was when I used to come to the city. So, I'm curious. I want to hear what Julia has to say about this. So I'm going to bring Julia on and we're going to talk about that. And then we have our fabulous guest, Vanessa Hollingshead. So let's bring on Julia Scotti, shall we? Here she is.
Hey, hi. I want to talk about Jersey and New York. I do, but I got to tell you, this really, as you know, Hoda and I have been hanging out.
And, yes.
Over the weekend, we went bird watching.
Nice.
Yes, I didn't know she was a big bird watcher. Yeah, we went to Turkey Swamp Park. And we saw, I had to write it down. We saw a mellow Spitzer Georgiana, which is a swamp sparrow.
Wow.
And we're both working on our swamp sparrow whistle so we can talk to them. So you want to hear? I've been working. You want to hear it?
Yes, I'd love to hear.
All right, here I got it. It needs work, but that's what I got so far.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So, it sounds like it's an Italian. It sounds like it's an Italian.
No, bird. If it was an Italian bird, I'd be going. So, all right. Onward and upward. I had another story, but I won't share it with you now.
Okay. You can if you like.
No, it takes too long. It'll take too long. It'll lead into everything else. Did you just give me the finger?
No, I didn't.
I like that.
No, that's just me wiping my because I put for some reason I put on makeup and I'm melting now. Right. So have you heard about this?
I have, but you know what? As a Jersey native, born and raised here, grew up on the other side of the Washington Bridge in the shadow of Palisades Amusement Park, my home state. I love it dearly. We've been telling New Yorkers for years to stay in New York. Just don't come here. There's nothing here for you. There's the shore. Nothing but dead bodies and contaminated fish washing up. Nothing. It's a horror. It's a horror show. Stay in New York. Stay in New York.
But they're not. Here's the thing that bothers me. Okay, and I just put up I did another pandemic takeaway about this. It's like, I don't think it's fair. From the moment we locked down. Mm-hmm. We were here during the pandemic and the crime wave. We should get first dibs on everything. We should be treated like royalty, the people that stayed, because so many people left. Do you know what I mean?
But they should have given out numbers before that. Like you should have had a color-coded card.
Yes, that would have been nice. That would have been nice. So it just pisses me off. It's like, guys, part of we don't have the tourists coming to the city right now because Broadway is closed and
Right.
there's nothing happening. So we're losing all these dollars, and all these people left. They just left.
Here's the problem. Well, all the people that left are these young, annoying people that, not that all young people are annoying, but all these people that made money
Right.
in the the early 2000s right up to now. And they've only known New York in its beautiful, pristine glory. They've only known a Hell's Kitchen that you could go to at 1:00 in the morning and still come home alive from. They don't know. Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
No, but that you brought up a great point. Do you remember when we used to? Well, you used to work the Improv, right?
I did. Well, that's why I bring it up.
Because it was so. I mean, people have no idea, and now it's like an Italian restaurant. But I mean, it was such a because you used to have to go there to get picked up to do Jersey gigs,
right?
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go.
My most memorable story of the Improv was coming out one night. And there was a guy laying dead with a bullet in his head. With his head, his life force is flowing down into the sewer. And there are people just standing around and go, "What do we do?" I go, "Well, I got to get my car." And I was as bad as that. It was right in front of my car. I got to get my car.
I got to leave. I got to
go home. I got kids home.
Yeah. So it's just people have no idea, because I remember. When Lane was a little boy, it's got to be, he was still in a stroller, so he's got to be under a year old. And we'd come back to New York. We weren't living here yet. And we went to pick up Todd's mom at the Grand, she was playing the Grand Hotel. So we met her at the stage door, and then we decided we'd walk up 8th Avenue. And the funniest thing in the world, because Lane was like this little cherub of a baby. So we're walking down, and literally pimps and hookers were going, "That's a really cute baby." Like they would have these conversations with us.
Only in New York could you get to know the pimps and hookers. Yeah.
And they were like, "That's a really cute baby." The crack addicts are like, "You know what? Yeah, it was, and like, so
you could drive home. I would go through the Lincoln Tunnel. You could get a blowjob or a hot pretzel, one or the other.
Or a clean windshield.
Or whether you wanted it or not. Yes.
Right. So it's just a very strange time. So my other question to you, young lady, is
yes, ma'am.
Have you been watching the convention?
I watched select portions of it. I watched, of course, my Michelle Obama. Who,
I love her.
If and when I ever grow up, I want to be her.
Oh yes.
And of course, I watched Dr. Biden last night. I watched more of the convention last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of like it like this.
Yeah, so do I.
I don't like, having to sit through, big fat guys from Georgia go, "And the state of Georgia proudly it's like, shut up. Just tell me, just put your votes in. Just shut up. We know, we know peanuts, peaches. We know the fireworks. We know it. We know it all. We go down I-95. There's the thing with the Mexican guy on the hat, with the south of the border. We know about that. We don't need to hear it again.
Yeah,
so I kind of like this.
Yeah, I do too. I will say this, and this is the thing that everyone's talked about, the fact that he's not a perfect candidate. But when the story comes out about his life, do you because you're a parent also. So the thought that you lose your wife and your daughter, and you have 2 sons to raise, and you get up every day and go to work, and then it was Bo that passed, and that he still got up and he took the fucking train. That shows you what kind of a man he is, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Flawed. This guy who isn't flawed? Even Jesus was flawed.
Right.
He did. He left the toilet seat up, but a lot of people
I know.
don't
And then he didn't, and the sandals, he wouldn't clean his toes.
But this guy, like you said, he's a working class guy. He's a family guy.
Right.
If you're religious, he's a man of faith. How in your right mind can you even compare the two and say this guy is not worthy to be president? It's beyond.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, and then this is interesting because when Obama was the senator back in the day, and he did that great speech, and I remember saying to my husband, he's going to be president one day, and Todd was like, he's too young, he's this. But the thing I loved about him, and it has to do with parenting again, is he clearly, like before he even became president, he clearly loved his children, and he loved his wife. Yeah. And to me, that is such a great quality for a human to have, then and to be president of the United States, to have empathy and love.
8 years, not a hint of a scandal.
Yeah. So it's just, we try not to be political on the show, but
No.
I have to say, I mean, that's what I one of the reasons I remember meeting Todd in the first, like when we were together, the first night that we were together, and we didn't sleep together, by the way.
I was going to say, did you mean together or?
No, he stayed with me all night long, and we made out for a long time, but then he had to leave and go somewhere early. So he had blue balls like the entire day. But I remember talking to him, like, what am I, 21, 22 years old? And I remember thinking to myself, he's going to be a great father. And he turned out to be a great father.
Know, yeah.
You just know.
Uh-huh.
So it's just an interesting time. The convention makes me hopeful. But it also, like with everything that's happening, like with the Postmaster General going, oh, yeah, no, we're not going to do anything anymore. It's like.
Well, he backed off. But I tell you, Dr. Biden last night, I was watching her. I was like, okay, there's something calming about this woman. It that even as an old lady, she got that teacher quality.
Oh, yeah.
That I just wanted to run, like if I were one of her students and I peed my pants and I went up to her, Mrs. Biden, I peed my pants. She would just hug me, not real close because I peed my pants, but she would just hug me and say it's going to be okay. And that's the kind of feeling you get from her.
Yeah. Speaking of teachers, there is a video right now of a woman in, I think it's Atlanta. Her name is Mrs. Williams. And she does this rap video. And her students are behind her. They're all in math. Look it up when you get off.
I have to say, I saw the principal that did that too.
Yeah. So, and it like they're really, you love to watch people, thinking outside of the box in this horrible time that we're in. So listen, let's bring Vanessa on and see what she has to say.
Okay.
Let me just say before I bring on Vanessa, and people who of course know Vanessa Hollingshead, she's one of the best comics in the business of all time. Now the story is, and I've told the story a billion times, but when we did the showcase for Funny Women, when we had all the network people, I didn't tell the girls that there was industry there because you don't want for people who are civilians, you don't need extra pressure. You're under pressure anyway when you're. So I didn't tell the girls, and it was Leanne Lord, Veronica Mosey, and Vanessa, and they all did bang up jobs. But Vanessa came out and. Now the crane is maybe we had 50 people. She basically, you'll hear comics say this, she wiped the floor with the audience. So I always liken that if it wasn't for Vanessa Hollingshead, we would not have gotten the special. So she knows I owe her forever. So on that note, let me bring her on because and Julia and I both worked with her these last few times over at Soul Joel's Comedy Amphitheater. And we had such a great time. So let's bring her on. Yeah, you're wearing your Soul Joe shirt. Here she is. Hey, Vanessa.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so glad I managed to figure out how to get onto this. When you're talking about technology, can you hear it?
Yeah, you were the worst with technology.
I gotta ask her a question. Vanessa, the first time we kind of met, do you remember, was it at the Comedy Works in Bristol? I think it was my first time back on stage in 10 years.
Yes.
Do you do remember that? I thought I was.
It was your first time back, and I remember thinking how much courage you had. It was like remarkable to me, and you were amazing. It was just.
Yeah, I thought it was you, and I know because I know Marion Groden was on.
Yeah, because I remember
was she on the
first
same
time
show?
the first time you were coming out as a woman, and I just was. It was remarkable,
It was you and Marion on the show?
Yeah, and I don't know if you'd perform comedy. I mean,
I hadn't. No, that was
just for not performing comedy. There's people that take breaks from comedy, and then they get the courage to get up on stage. And I mean, it just takes so much to be a comedian, and just with this COVID thing, it just makes me think. How I feel like I'm an open micer every time I do comedy because it's so rare that you do it now. I go over my notes with my cat. I go over.
Probably a good thing. I
got the cat.
Yeah, I did a show over the weekend with veterans, 2 veterans, Gene Triple and Chris Monty, and all 3 of us were there with the notes. you know, oh, geez, let's knock that camera over. The earthquake. Oh, okay.
We all do that. We all do
yeah.
that. I mean, I'm doing those virtual shows at the Crane where there's no audience, and we all Vanessa had did a couple of weeks ago, and we all looked at our notes. I even took my notes on, and I say to the audience, first of all, there's nobody. You know, we're looking in a camera. I'm like, guys, we haven't been on stage. You know,
Right.
that's the thing that you know. This is the one thing about this virus. That comment, we all know we're all in the same boat. It doesn't matter if it's the first person ever stepping on stage to Jay Leno. Do you know what I mean? Like we're all like, because we're all used to being on stage. Like I don't go out a lot. You know that. I'm so lazy. But there were comics like we had Jessie Cursor on a couple of weeks ago, and she used to go do 2, 3, 4 sets a night. And
Well,
now,
yeah, and if you're a musician, you can practice at home. If you're a singer, you can do the same thing. You can't do that as a comic. You need to be out there.
I was like 6, 7 nights a week. I think I even on my honeymoon, I did a show. Went over to Paris, did a show for the expats with Rich Hall, and then I was in Amsterdam. And this has so thrown me. This has really been trying, and so much of my identity as a person is so wrapped up in comedy. You know, when you talk to men and they're like defined by their job, you know, as women we're defined by our job too. You know, it's just been and then it's been very difficult to stay positive and keep your head up and know that there's Zoom. And it's like when you start saying when this is going to end, like as soon as I hear there's another wave of the COVID, like my heart just sinks.
Did you find that you had a lack of a dearth of civilian friends when this all hit? Like it's like, who do I have nobody to hang out with because everybody I know is a comic. You know,
I had so little. I got such a small amount of comedian friends that I trust. So I kept it kind of even. You know, there was I had some civilian friends, but a lot of them, like, you know, for my party, I just had a birthday, you know, some of them wouldn't come because of COVID, and one did come and was covered up, and I wanted her to feel okay. And, you know, it was, I know she felt uncomfortable.
Happy
and
birthday, by the way.
Thank you. And I know she felt uncomfortable, but it made me feel bad that she felt that uncomfortable, but I was so touched that she came all the way, you know, from New York City all the way out to Long Island and, you know, stayed for like an hour and then had to get back, you know?
I think that, like, one of the reasons we had such a good, we were so, for the audience, you know, we did a show with Soul Joe last month, and then he was doing a festival, asked us to come back, and I just said, fuck it, these are the two I'm going to work with, because I don't have to worry, solid show. I think we had more fun sitting around eating the salad before the show.
Right.
Like people don't like, if you're not in this business, that they don't understand. Like, look, we're all catty and we're all like that, you know. But there's something about the community of comedians. I miss that so much.
I do too.
You know, it breaks my heart that we can't hang out and just bullshit. Do you know what I mean?
That's what's nice about this show, you know, and having a different person every week that. You know, we can, and that people that we like, you know, people that we don't know, we get to know. That's why I like it. Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do the show, so we have the connection to, you know, but it's still not the same. I mean, like I said, the dream is this becomes, you know, like a series, and we can sit in a diner, you know, and drink coffee and eat eggs and have bacon coming out of our bacon. You know what I mean? Like I miss that so much. I do. So listen, before I forget, we always have to ask the one thing that we always ask. Do you want to ask the question this time, Julia, dear?
Sure. We are compiling an anecdotal survey. Which Cuomo would you sleep with, Chris, Andrew, or Mario? Alive.
I can't. I'd have to say neither of them.
Wow. None of them turn you on?
But if it were my life was at stake, and mine and Carole's life was at stake, and our executioner said you'd have to sleep with one of them, which one would you pick?
She'd let us die. Look at the look in her face.
I think.
Julia, it was wonderful knowing you.
Okay. Wow. Really? None of them push your button, huh?
No, I am so in love with New York City, and listening to you before talk about it. I just wish a little bit more is done to. I just wish more is done right now to revive the city. I know people are leaving in droves, but then it's going to hopefully make a resurgence. And I lived in New York in the 70s. I lived in the early 60s in New York City when it was hideous. And it's not like that, but a lot of stores have closed. I talked to Carole as we were driving up. A lot of them have taken their loans and gone elsewhere, And I don't know what's going to happen to New York. I just want this. I want to, every time it's like, I just want someone to find a vaccine. I want everybody to get their vaccines, and I want life to return as normal. And what's hard is you got to live in this kind of altered reality, and you have to be in a kind of state, kind of a Zen state of acceptance. Like, this is how it is. I'm like, what's going to happen when the money runs out? What's going to happen to comedy clubs? What's going to happen to restaurants? Like, you just think about everybody and how we've been affected.
By the way, I just want to put up on the question about who you would sleep with. Melanie, who did the photographer for our second special. I want to put this up so you can see what she wrote. Andrew.
Yes. Okay. And that I'd have to say. All right. I would agree. All right. I mean, you're alive, Julia. You've been alive by that comment.
Yeah.
But
that's what I would do.
Somebody had interviewed me for some documentary, and they asked me about de Blasio, and I was very serious. I want to say that Bill de Blasio is the greatest uniter of people, because he united conservatives and liberals and Democrats and Republicans, because we all fucking hate him.
I so didn't want that to happen because he's Italian, and I was like, oh, good, an Italian
And
mayor.
I love Italians running stuff, cooking, making love. Love everything about Italians, culture, everything. And now this is upsetting. And reality, like the unacceptable, has now become our new reality, and the unbelievable. And lies are being told to us, and whatever media you're listening to, whatever news reports you're listening to, who you're watching, and you're just accepting. You're just accepting this as a reality. When I listened to de Blasio, and he was talking about, it's good that our cops are doing their job. Meanwhile, 50 people in New York were murdered over the weekend. And I'm like, what job? What job? What job are they doing?
Yeah, where the hell are you living that you think that this is going on? You're like, well, don't even get me started. So we have.
And then we're afraid with the cancel culture. You write stuff, you say stuff, they'll dig it up later. So you even feel nervous to say anything that you kind of believe to your heart about making things better or what's going on. Because you'll be, hey, you made that comment a couple of weeks ago, and I know you're doing a fundraiser for the Democrats, and I'm sorry, you made a couple of comments. We're not going to be using it.
We seem to come to this topic every week on the show.
We
lately.
do. We do.
And I think it's central to our life, our livelihood.
Yes.
Because we are public people and because we are known for being outspoken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how every comic that comes on here, we eventually wind up at that place somehow. And there's nothing wrong with it. I just think I wish we had a solution. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I think go ahead, Vanessa.
When I was on the ships, I was already told what I can and can't say.
Right.
I'd already got taken off a couple shows because it was okay to make fun of the okay to make fun of Italians, Europeans, the British, crazy, eccentric white women, myself, as much until the cows came in. But anything that would say it would be Muslim, German, Jewish, Chinese, Asian, Korean, Middle Eastern, I got pulled. So they cherry picked what jokes I could use, even though I collectively made fun in a warm way of everybody. Like my Comedy Central special, half of it would be cut out now. I couldn't even do it. And it was all done with love.
We talk about Rickles. I mean, could Rickles survive or, in this day, or even Buddy Hackett for that matter?
What about Tropic Thunder with Robert Downey Jr. impersonating a black guy?
I don't know how that got made the first place.
Right. I know. Absolutely. But my son was saying that I guess there's a 30 Rock, because he loved that show. And he said there was an episode where they were doing I guess, a flashback, and it was they pulled the episode, and the scene that they were upset about was that it was supposed to be back in the 50s, and Tracy Morgan was, in the show, and it was very similar to Amos and Andy, and then John Hamm came out in blackface and started doing like a real offensive thing. And in the scene, he walks into Tracy, like giving him this idea, like, how about this? And he does it. And Tracy goes, nope. And they end it. And so it's actually a take on all of this, but they had to cut that fucking episode out. They because of that particular scene, which is like, he was making fun of, he was actually saying, no, we're not going to do that. So
it's denying history.
Right.
Like, okay, I mean, I was listening to Bill Maher, and the thing, when Blake Lively and her husband apologized, it was just horrible that they had their wedding on what was a Southern plantation, right?
Right.
And then 2 blocks away at Wall Street is where, was where they had slave markets in New York City.
Right.
But we didn't end Wall Street.
Right.
I mean, and then one was a dance. Like, there's so many places from our history. And then to dig up things about people from 20 and 30 years ago when they were stupid and didn't know better, when it was a different time, there should be some kind of ban on like anything older than 30 days, is stricken. I don't know.
Well, look at
give people a shot.
I mean, Ted Danson survived the blackface thing, and back even at that time when he did it, even being with Whoopi Goldberg, he said, I don't know what possessed him to do it, and how she ever
probably
let him
Whoopi said do it,
but how she ever let him do that? I mean, listen, what the hell were you thinking?
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm not. I'll ramble forever.
I don't think she knew it would come back and bite him in the ass, but she was the one that inspired me when I was on the ships. It was Whoopi Goldberg. Every night I'd be on YouTube looking up politically correct language, the political movement, the cancel culture, just studying it to understand how this happened from universities, who started it, was it the media mob, like what was the beginnings of how this became, it went from, you can't be PC to like basically being silenced if you had anything other than the opinion, which is also a form of, abuse. To me, I think it's like, I'm offended by people that are so easily offended. That's offensive to me. That means you can't say anything. But Whoopi Goldberg said, you, as a comedian, you could let this situation make you bitter and angry and dark, which is, I was on the way to getting that way. I'm like, well, I'll talk about kittens and socks. I guess that's, no one could say something, unless maybe someone of the PETA organization will be offended. Or you can start writing smarter, which means you look at material in such a way and you make sure it's smart. It's just like the Russians when they had the gulags and they had all these Russians used to do comic strips because if they got found out, they would literally be taken from their homes and thrown into a gulag, and they still throw them into the gulag. It's not talked about, but so they started to write really smart cartoons or have different words that said things, and they began to like have an underground way of using their humor. So when Whoopi said that to write smarter, I took up my jokes and I changed them. I made them very, a lot of them pretty smart and bright, not the way I would usually like to do stuff, like all out just impersonating people, because that's what I did. I love to make fun of Italians, French. This is what I do. And it's like I can't do it.
It's funny you mentioned the Russians. I'm watching a series on I think it's called The History of Film. I'm not sure, but it's and they were talking about the Russian filmmakers in the early 20th century, and how during the times of Lenin and Stalin. How they would make these films that they were making their political points, but they were guised like the cartoons were, so that it wouldn't they wouldn't wind up in the gulag. Yeah.
You know what? Well, when we were talking last night, my husband and I were on FaceTime chatting about this, and he, he's part of that culture because he's 28. He doesn't know a world without the internet. And he even said, he goes, I think that he thinks it's gotten to the point where it's like you can't just cut somebody out because they made a mistake. If the person is absolutely apologetic and going, I was wrong, it was a mistake, I was 12 when I did it, you have to at least give them a second chance. Now, if they do it again, like we discussed, like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby, these guys, I say this all the time. Cosby is a horrible human being. He deserves to be in jail for the rest of his life. But growing up, he was a great fucking comedian. You know, Bill Cosby was a great comedian, and you have to learn to separate the bad guy from the persona of who he was.
Can I jump in there?
Of course.
I'm mentioning the film only because it's relevant to this conversation. In Julie Scotti Funny That Way, there's a section of me performing in the 80s, I believe, late 80s, early 90s, where I'm doing this transphobic, homophobic bit. And I'm watching it with my son. You know, we're watching the video of it. And I'm screaming, stop, just stop. It's horrifying to me at this point, especially considering how I turned out. You know, I mean, you talk about, you know, the universe going, you know, but you know, I have a retrospect, you know, a different life now, and I can look back and I can see it and I can feel it from this side of the fence, you know. I don't know. Back then, it just didn't seem to. It was okay, you know.
And
I felt bad though.
It's not that it was okay, and this is something that really has to be said. It was a different time.
And
we didn't have the internet. We didn't have people taking pictures. Like, you know, my Todd likes to walk through New York City and knock over the tourists, and we call it bowling for tourists. Now there's no tourists to knock over, so now he's got to start with New Yorkers. So we got into it. It was like some guy was riding one of those motorized scooters and almost hit us. So Todd, you know, made a comment, and the guy got off, and you know they're doing the typical fuck you. But what happened was I watched the other guy, and people started taking their cameras out, and he stopped and he got back on his fucking scooter. Mm-hmm. Because that's the thing. We didn't have cameras back then. We didn't have any of this shit to go, I have proof that you're a dick.
Right. But we're doing it for silly reasons. You got a university professor, just because it's a big thing, like to call for young people to just call out a professor, and they leave things on bathroom walls. I mean, I've been reading a lot about this, you know, on bathroom walls. If you feel offended or triggered by somebody, please report it anonymously, or you could say your name. So there was a professor that said, he was talking about something, you know, just giving a lecture, and went, I can't believe it, kill me now. Just made that. And someone said, I'm really offended because that's offensive to people that want to commit suicide. Or offensive to people who've tried to commit suicide. Well, this is happening a lot, like micromanaging every word and thing people say. Or there'll be professors that are just giving a talk about the difference between Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and why we're warring, and why Christians maybe get offended by Islamists or Muslims, and why Muslims can get offended by Jews. And they got rid of him simply because he was now debating and asking the kids to use their reason. No one debates anymore. He just got shut down, lost his job. This is what's happening all the time.
That almost happened to me when I was teaching. I was a middle school teacher, and we were talking about we had a gang issue in middle school, believe it or not, and there was a lot of racial unrest there, and we got onto the subject of names. And the N word came up, and I said, all right, well, we're going to open this discussion up, and we used all of them, and I said there was a list of them for every ethnic group since the beginning of time, and I went through them all. Right. And the next day, it was a good discussion, but my principal brought me in, and he said, did you use the N word? And I said, yeah, we did. We were talking about it. That's what brought it up. Some kid called another kid the N word. And I said, how did we not? He goes, well, why didn't you just call it the N word? I go, because that's stupid. That's as bad as saying the N word, you dumbass. Mm-hmm. So, and I said, it's better to, and all I could hear was Lenny Bruce in my head going, it's just a word. And you just say it over and over and over and over and over again until it doesn't have any meaning anymore, and because it can't hurt anymore. Right. And we put this value on words that, so I hope that this is a pendulum, and it's because social media is so new, the pendulum has swung way to one side. I hope that we'll find it'll move to the middle as time goes on.
Well, people gave, it's so funny. Like we were talking, I worship Mel Brooks, and would, my bucket list would be hopefully before he goes, I get to meet him. But
makes two of us.
But they always say, why do you make fun of Hitler? And he said, because if you make fun of Hitler, you give him no more power. His power goes away. But I got to tell you, V, that, so the thing about the suicide, I used to do a bit, and every so often I still do it, but I don't remember the bit anymore. But I was talking about aging. And I said, one of the jokes I would do is that I said, once you hit 40, just kill yourself because you're done. It's over, right? So literally, I swear to God, the same fucking thing happened. This woman comes up to me, she goes, I was offended. My son killed himself when he was 40. I went, how the fuck am I supposed to know that your son killed himself?
Right.
Like you think I actually wrote the joke going, who's that woman? Her name's Mary. I'm going to fuck you up by saying this.
Right.
But if you had known, would you still have done it?
Probably.
Okay. That's I respect you for that.
Because I'm not writing but that happened. Listen, when I was getting married, we got married we didn't get married in a temple or a church or anything. We got married in the United Nations chapel. And my grandmother was so pissed at me because she literally was on the phone with me going, you're doing this to hurt me. You're not having and I went, yes, Grandma, that's what I'm doing. I'm purposely not going into a temple to fuck you. And I hung up the phone. And then 2 seconds later, my mother called and go, what did you say to Grandma? And I was like, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that. All we're trying to say to the people watching now is, we are fully, I know, I know the line. I don't believe in using racial slurs. I don't believe in doing anything homophobic or transphobic. But I also am a filthy comic. I mean, like, I tell dick jokes. So I'm sure somebody's offended that I talk about cum in my fucking face, but I don't care at this point. And really, people, when you look at me, do you see 62? No, that's from the cum. Okay, so I want you to say that Fran Capo was on. Hello, Fran.
Hi,
Fran. Franny. So she wrote, and I heard about this, that they are now putting a warning notice on Blazing Saddles.
What?
I mean,
This is insane.
It was written by Richard Pryor.
Yeah, right.
It's ridiculous.
And what happens when someone gets offended? This is what I want to mean. Someone's at a show, they listen to a joke, they're offended. How is their life impacted compared to making sure that a comic no longer can work at a club or loses their career, or you have the Twitter? Like, that's offense to me. I find that offensive, shutting down a person's livelihood because you don't like one joke. Is it going to impact the way you take care of your children, the way you run your car, the way you pay your rent, the way you pay your bills? That's what's truly offensive, and no one's talking about it. No one is talking about how it destroys people's lives. Just telling a joke. If you don't like it, just leave. That's what you used to do. You're like, what? I don't like this joke. I don't like this comedian. Let's just go. You didn't destroy somebody.
Yeah, but
you just left. Because it wasn't your cup of tea.
But to most civilians, what we do is not a real job.
Well, then this is what I'd like to propose. Anybody that gets offended by a joke by a comedian, just suddenly gets offended, I want them to write a great joke and then perform it. And then they can tell me how offensive and how hard it was. They write the jokes. Yeah. That's what they should do.
Absolutely.
Go walk in our shoes.
I think this offensive culture comes from people who are craving attention. All right. Yes. Everybody craves attention. Right. And the minute somebody says something that you may have experienced, like your audience member with the suicide attempt, she was able to pick that as, oh, good, here's my chance to be offended. And they stand up and go, I'm offended. Right. I'm offended. You know?
Right.
And I think that's the source of it. I could be wrong.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so they do. No, they do. They get pleasure. They get, like, for young people, this is a coup. This is a coup when you shut down your teacher and get him in trouble. And then you look good with your peers. Like, wow, wasn't I great at getting offended? Like, that's the quiet thing that goes around. And then these kids, this is like peer pressure to destroy people, to offend people, and to call this a tolerant culture and and say that, to say that this is tolerant and we're offended. they're doing awful things to people, doing this to them, shutting everybody down, so no one can learn, no one can debate, no one can have deductive reasoning or be intellectually curious. Everyone's robbed of that. And, why go to fucking school anymore? It's just insane to me.
Yeah. And Fran Capo said, how small are these people's lives that this is what matters to them?
What was Mike Diesel's comment?
Mike, he hold on, I'm trying to, nope, that's not it. God, I hate this thing. Basically, he was saying that he hears stroke jokes and he's fine about that. So I'm assuming that Mike might have had a stroke. Did Mike Diesel have a stroke?
I don't know. But yeah. I would, if I had a stroke, I wouldn't want to hear stroke jokes. But God bless him for being fine with it.
Here's another. And then I want to move on because we still have questions about the first time in the business. But I have to, when Todd's brother, it's a long story. Todd's brother was killed, and his brother was 6'5" and 300 pounds. And when my mother-in-law went to the funeral home to get a coffin, he was 6'5" and 300 pounds. He didn't fit in the coffin, and she says to the funeral director, "Can't you just stuff him in?" And everybody died. Everybody died laughing because that's what you do. That's what you do. That's how you deal with it. Now, like some people might think, wow, that's really terrible. But it's like, well, it's not like he's alive. He's there. You know what? Like, so it's, and we all laughed. It was such a relief it's a release. So when you get these people that turn around and say, it's like.
Isn't that the purpose of the repast after I don't know if you do that in Jewish culture or not, but in Italian culture, we have the repast, and after the burial, you go in a restaurant and you just laugh. You tell stories about the dead person. You laugh your ass off, and it's like you said, it's a release. I think that's what we do too. Yeah, as comedians, people come to see us to laugh, to forget about life for a while, like Billy Joel says.
Right.
And
but how many times have we all been on stage after a show and somebody's walked up and said, "I've just had the worst day of my life, and you saved me."
Yeah.
So,
and that's why we do it.
Right.
Those moments. One woman said I had to take a Bill Hicks line, which she didn't know. She was Christian, and she said, "I really enjoyed your comedy act, but as a Christian, I was very offended when you used the Lord's name in vain. You didn't need to do that." And I immediately said to her, I said, "Listen, you're a good Christian. I'm a good Christian. Do you practice forgiveness and love and tolerance and kindness? Do you try and practice all those things?" And she went, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Well, then forgive me."
By the way,
it's like compliments of Bill Hicks.
By the way, Julia, I know the Italians do that where they talk and tell stories, but Jews are too busy getting to the buffet table.
We have our version of the buffet table too. We go mainly because somebody else is paying for the dinner. That's why
exactly.
We go there,
So, like I said, it's already 45 minutes. So before
is it really? Wow.
Yes. A couple of questions we always like to talk about with comedy is, so when you started as a comedian, Vanessa, who was your inspiration? Like, who did you like? I always say Pryor and Carlin. So it could be, and doesn't have to be someone famous.
It was Pryor, Carlin, Mario Cantone, Louis Black, Monty Python, The Flying Circus, John Cleese. I love British humor. Eddie Izzard as I got, but Pryor and Carlin was who I listened to over and over again, re-listened to them, kept listening to them. And then just some of the women of comedy, like Lucille Ball, I always loved her. And I liked Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers. I mean, these women were like trailblazers. So I always loved them. And I remember Tom and Genio said something really interesting about being a comedian. He said, the point isn't to be don't worry about telling jokes and being so funny. You want to be compelling. You want to be on stage and have people watch you, even if you're not always that funny. And they used to do shows in old vaudeville or old time where they would tell a sad story too. So the comic would make you laugh and they'd make you cry. Not Richard Pryor. Oh God, and I can't remember. And now I feel I'm having a senior moment. I forgot the famous. He killed himself.
Freddie Prinze?
Richie
no,
Jenny?
Not Richard Jenny. Just killed himself, hung himself. My favorite comedian,
Robin
Robin Williams. He did a bit. We talked. It was raising money for when they were trying to raise money for poverty. The comedians thing. You remember that famous show they had every year? Mm-hmm. He did a joke, and then he talked about being homeless, and he made the audience laugh, and he made the audience cry. I wish that kind of comedy would kind of come back again, because I thought that was inspirational.
I don't know if you can see this behind me. I'm gonna move this over, but this is from Bill Persky, the writer of the Dick Van Dyke Show, and his 4 rules for comedy are: start with the truth, stay human, don't reach for ugly, and be vulnerable. And those are the things you're talking about. You know?
Did you ever see Chris Titus's solo show, which I always talk about because, just for the audience to know, I also develop and direct solo shows. And I always tell my clients to watch that because he does exactly that. He does, he talks, at one point, he's literally crushing. And the audience is just, you can hear them. And then he talks about his mother committing suicide. Mm-hmm. And silence, like crickets. And then in the next minute, he takes the moment. And then the next minute, he tells a joke and brings them back. And that to me is such a wonderful, that's one of the reasons why I love your film, Julia, because it is like that. You laugh, you cry, you're like, fuck, what? Like that to me is real comedy. And Pryor did that. I mean, I literally watched Pryor's live in concert again. And there's nobody, he's so vulnerable throughout the entire special. And you just sit there going, fuck, why am I even doing this? He's so good. Okay, listen, one more thing before we go. Did you ever get to meet any of your heroes, Vanessa?
Yes. I got to open for Richard Pryor. That was was the top of and that happened by mistake. I was at the comedy store, and Mitzi wouldn't even give me a spot. No one would give me a spot. And I ended up doing this show for her, this benefit. And I did very well. And then Richard Pryor was getting ready to come up. He had the wheelchair, he had the bodyguards, and he was there. And nobody wanted to go on in front of him because it was Richard Pryor. And they said, you're going to eat your ass. You could just forget about if you got to open, because everyone is there to see Richard. And they said, oh, hey, Vanessa, you want to go on? So they literally made me the opening act before Pryor came on. And I had all this hippie parent material. I had all this growing up in Bed-Stuy. I had all this, what it's like to be a white girl in a black neighborhood. So I had it all. And Richard Pryor, I got off stage and I got the audience, and Richard Pryor's bodyguard said he wants to talk to you. And I had he goes, just keep doing what you're doing. You're great. And I had tears in my eyes. And if you look at the marquee, I will never be able to see it again. They had it I think it was they had something on the marquee and it said Vanessa Hollingshead and Richard Pryor. It was Vanessa Hollingshead and Richard Pryor. And I don't know what day they put it on. I just remember looking at that as I'm going down Sunset Boulevard and then I ended up being able to write my name. And then the other time was with Pryor, when he was he was just going over his stuff with Don Marrero was there, and not Pryor, Carlin, and I was getting, and Silver Friedman was running the Improv, and there was almost no one there, small show, and and I'm hosting, and in watch George Carlin, and I said, I'm so sorry that there's such a small audience, and I remember he went, oh no, that's fine with me. I need to hear how my words sound. I know when it's funny. I know how to construct a joke. I need to hear how the words sound. I remember thinking, would I ever be able to say that? And I remember years later, someone apologized years later to me. There's a small show. They asked me to do the show to headline. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's such a tiny show. I'm like, no, that's right. I just need to hear how the jokes sound. I think I was getting ready for a show, a special. Just need to hear the words and hear how the jokes sound.
That's exactly. I always say that because especially when you're doing the virtual shows, it's about getting the jokes out. And especially with me, so much of my jokes has musicality. So
Same here.
So I need to. You just want to hear how it sounds because maybe it's a word. Maybe you take out the and put in
Yes.
So
That's I just wrote right before we went on. I wrote the spit, and it's exactly what I'm doing at the moment. And it's like I'm looking at it even as we're talking, and about what I could take out or leave in to make it funny. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, ladies, listen, we're done. I mean, we let me just see the other comments. And Fran Capo said, hold on. Oh no, Carrot says, I love that story, Vanessa Hollingshead. Never heard that before about Pryor. It's so funny. You and I have the same Pryor story because his bodyguard did the same thing to me. And it was, and it's when you're complimented by a hero, my reaction, Vanessa, was I literally, because he was sitting next to Mitzi at the time. I literally walked up to Mitzi after he said that about me, saying he loved watching me. I went, okay, I'm done. I can quit. I'm done.
Yeah.
So everybody, please follow these lovely ladies. We are here every Wednesday. We are going to probably continue through September. Let's not forget, hello, boys, I'm back. And of course, the fabulous, hold on, I have it on a banner. So, haha, look at that. Check out the film. Look at that. I have it on a banner for you now.
Perfect.
It really is.
Great.
Susan Sandler did a really fantastic job with it.
It's so great. I'm not just saying it because she's sitting right next to me. Seriously. Check out the film of Vanessa, Vanessa, Julia, and I, we're all looking to get up on stage. So if you have a stage for us, it's outdoors. We'll glove up. We'll wear hazmat suits. We'll do whatever we have because we really miss.
I'll do it indoors. I don't care.
We had such a good time. Next week we have Jane Condon. So that's going to be a fun show. And
we do?
Yes, we do.
Wow.
Yes. So
we are good. We get all the good comments.
We do. And thank you for watching. Please support live comedy. Vanessa, Julia, stay after I end the broadcast. Just stay in the room for a second so we can say goodbye.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Bye.